So I know you guys are probably looking and saying, why does a pirate make a good product manager? That is not what it said at the meetup. I decided the meetup title was a little boring, so I needed to shake things up a little bit at about 9 o'clock last night. I'm sure you guys know how that goes. So basically today I want to talk about how product managers and marketing can work together to market mobile apps. I'm sure a lot of you have heard, if I can't make it viral, it's never going to succeed. You can't hear me?
Talk louder.
Really?
Please, yeah.
Scream.
No one's ever told me to talk louder. As everyone in our open office space can tell you. I worked from home and they told me it was very quiet here yesterday. So what we want to talk about, is that okay now? So what I want to talk about today is how product management and marketing really intersect, in my opinion. You hear a lot of people talking about things need to be viral to be successful, or if you can't get it in the store featured, it's never going to work. And while that is true in some part, I don't think we should be defeatist. So there needs to be a way that we open a communication and a dialogue about how to work better together so that product management isn't in a silo, marketing isn't in a silo, tech isn't in a silo. So starting with that, how many people here work on a product right now? Any product managers, growth hackers here? Developers? People who are just here for free lunch? So a little bit of background, just to get started with what a product manager is for those of you who don't know. Or my grandma who asks me every time, like, what is it that you did again? Like, I thought you went to law school, I don't get it. So what a product manager is really this intersection between business, tech, and design. You have to have your fingers in a lot of different places, you have to be thinking about a lot of different things. The goals for the apps from the business point of view, how it's going to be executed from a tech, and how that's communicated in terms of the design and the UX. So a great quote from a book that all product strategists here are given when you're hired is that the job of a product manager is to discover a product that is valuable, usable, and feasible. And what that means to me is that's not a title. That's not like I'm Danielle, product manager. That's a role. That's a way of thought, and that sounds really esoteric and mumbo jumbo, but the truth is you can be a developer and say I'm a product manager if your goal is to think about the business with the technology. You can be the CEO and be the product manager. You can be in the marketing team, and I've seen it happen before. They're really the people who are owning the product. So I'm hoping that everyone in all the different fields today can take away something from this so they can apply to a product that they're working on. So pirates, where does this come from with the R? Has anyone heard of pirate metrics before? So for those of you who don't know, have you heard of Dave McClure? So he does 500 startups. He coined this in 2007. So this is nothing new. I cannot claim to have made this up. It's a great talk that he gave at Stanford. It's about 5 minutes long. It's on his blog on 500 startups if you want to check it out. It's really entertaining. He's way funnier than I am, and he'll swear way more than I will, but but what this framework is his goal is to give a framework really for CEOs and product managers and marketers to understand that there's a way to work together and to communicate about the product through this R kind of reference. Hopefully I will not have to say that again in the presentation. But I've seen some people want to add a G on the end, like all of this equals growth. But this isn't just about growth. This is really just a way to start the conversation. This isn't a metric that you can measure these things by what's up here, but it's a way to talk about the different stages of a product and work together with other parts in your team to identify it. So, how does this apply to mobile apps? I kind of hit on it. Traditionally, how are mobile apps discovered? A lot of people say if you search for it in store and you can't find it, you give up, or you hear from it for friends. And so it goes to the first stage, which is acquisition. So you can thank Google for this. These are not my numbers. They came out with this in May 2015, so just recently, of these numbers. So in terms of sources of app awareness for acquisition, right? Because what acquisition is how users find you. Pretty simple. It's what I called my talk today. But I think in mobile apps, it's more about than just how people find you. It's the whole principle that you have to follow through with all the other steps. But to start with acquisition, they say 52% of people hear of apps from friends, family, and colleagues. And I don't know if that's a number that resonates with you guys, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a nerd like me telling my roommate about an app in the morning, which has happened, I bet, because we're morning people. But it's more, you see somebody on social media talking about something, you say, gosh, I wish there was a way to do something, and someone tells you about it. And that's how you become aware of something. That doesn't necessarily mean that 52% of people are downloading it for that reason, but that's just how it gets on your radar. Because if you're like me, the first time you looked at these numbers, I was like, I'm not a math major, but that doesn't add up to 100. So that was my first confusion when I got to that site. So that's 52% is a pretty big number. And then 40% is browsing the app store. And I think that's where you get the kind of backlash where people say, if you can't find it in the store, it's not going to be successful. Has anyone heard the term zombie app before? You're nodding. Do you want to say what it is?
It just falls into the black hole. It's like, even if you wanted to search it, that app's still 3 pages down. If very well what you want is out there, but you'll never find it.
Like, I don't know if you guys have had the problem. I know the name of an app sometime. I search for it and you still can't find it. And you go and you're like, wait, my friend told me about it. I know this is what it is. I can't find it. And that's where that 40% becomes kind of a problem. So if we were to rely just on marketers to get an app out there and push it to the top of the list, in theory, that would be the only way that you would find those 40%, which is why that 52% becomes so crucial of how you can leverage people knowing and hearing about an app. So to me, that means that's not a banner ad, that's not a Facebook install ad, it's more than that too. It's about how you can have that conversation. And the only way to have a conversation like that is to keep the product cyclical, is to make people enjoy using it, is to make people have retention with the product and then refer it to their friends. So that's really why this framework, I think, works particularly well for mobile apps. So activation, if you get someone to hear about your app, that's great. But I don't know if this statistic holds true for you guys, but they said 1 in 4 download an app but don't open it. Leah's nodding her head. How many, I don't know how many apps you guys have in your phone. They say the average is 36. Of those 36, they say you only use about 20% of them regularly in the week. And how many of those are never downloaded? I mean, that's a pretty high number. And that's where product management comes in. Marketers can do all of the job in the world of pushing downloads, but if the app is not being used, if it's not being retained, as a product manager, you haven't done your job. You can pat marketing on the back and they can tout all their numbers they want of the number of downloads, but that's not going to get you to the next step of referrals and other people and creating that buzz, unless you have an amazing viral marketing team, and if you do, can they please call me because I'd like to use them. So that's just an interesting statistic to think about with apps, because I don't think a lot of people realize that. For me, in my nerdiness, if I download something, I'm opening it. But that's a real issue that we have to combat. And this goes to retention. Why are people abandoning things if they open them? Loss of interest. Well, whose fault is it if you're losing interest? I'm going to say it's my fault. As a product manager of an app, if you're losing interest, I haven't served you new content. I haven't pushed a discount or a deal or something that makes you want to come back. I haven't made it engaging for you to invite your community or encourage other users to use it. I don't know, terrible example. How many people here know Yo? The day Yo came out in my old office, and to go back here, I guess I didn't tell you about what I've done, and I won't go back totally, but I've worked at mobile companies before here, and it was a kind of place where you're kind of required to know the new viral thing, and all you heard that day in that office was just Yo, Yo, Yo. So for those of you who don't know, it was an invite app where you signed up and you could just randomly push message people the word Yo. That was it. I didn't do anything else. I wish I could quote how much money they supposedly made off it and what it was valued off. If anyone knows, jump in. But it was a ridiculous amount. And then people started making pizza and all these other things, or Bro. There was a spinoff that was Bro. I'm sure it'll be an episode on Silicon Valley eventually. But
it already was.
Was it?
Yeah.
The Bro app.
The Bro app.
Was it? Yeah, that's where I got it. I watch it. It just matched the rest of my real life, I guess. But that's a great example. If you lose interest, if it's ridiculous, no one's going to keep using it. And that was that app's purpose. I mean, it was designed to be a flash-in-the-pan stunt. If you're not trying to design a flash-in-the-pan stunt, kind of app, what do? To focus on that retention is you have to build a good product, and that's not a marketer's job. That's a product manager's job. The 29% of no longer needing it, that falls into that category where, have you been in a store and it's like you have to download this app to get the discount, or you have to download this app to go to this conference. You have it on your phone, you're never going to use it again. People are really missing the opportunity to keep users engaged. There are specific apps where that's going to happen, obviously, but that's a huge chunk of it. And then the 18% found a better app. The reason why I think that's an interesting statistic is, how did you find a better app? If people are really only hearing about things through browsing in the store and through their colleagues, that means someone did it better. And not built the app better, that means someone marketed it better. That means that someone pushed their marketing of their app to a point that they got their other friends and colleagues to talk about it, and all of a sudden your app is no longer at the top. Through no fault of a product manager's job, but maybe marketing slacked on theirs and someone else picked it up. And that's why it's so important, is that the two departments really have to talk together. And I say departments just to separate the role. I don't know how many people here, does anyone working on an app have a product manager department and a marketing department? Nice. Communication between the two for me has been great sometimes and a little off sometimes. So I'll get to that in a second, but just to cover the last one in here, notice I skipped revenue, because as Dave McClure says in his speech, we'll leave revenue up to you. You figure out how to make money, and we'll just bring the users to you guys. So this last one is referral, and I think that's a huge part of it. You see it in, sometimes it's just a social media referral or a share, but more so it's, Uber's a great example of this. Share it with your mom. I don't know how many people got their mom and dad on Uber so they could get the $20 off. I did it, and then I was like, Mom and Dad both sign up. And then my dad texted me, wait, can't I refer your mom and then I get the $20? And I'm like, shoot, you totally stole my secret. But that kind of thing is really important in the mobile world, because if you can't find it in the store, how are you going to encourage people to refer? And some people want to be the person that is known of as the thought leader and is known of as, oh, I want to tell you about this cool new thing. Like, I actually tweet about some things, and I actually put some things on my Facebook. But, everyone's obviously not me. So how do you do that? Well, you have to motivate them through referrals, whether it's a discount code, whether it's coffee and a bagel. Don't ask me how I know this, not that I'm on dating sites. So in Coffee Meets Bagel, you get points for people you invite, you get points for activity you do within the app, and it's not just a direct referral, it's what you do with the actions in the site, and that sort of gamification helps too. So those are kind of the steps there, and then I just wanted to kind of show that you can see how these numbers go together, and you can tell I'm not a designer. This is a beautiful slide that I made. But the acquisition's at the top, but to me, I think it's really cyclical. It's how you understand that activation goes with retention, goes with referrals, right? Because nobody's going to refer an app that doesn't work. No one's going to refer an app that doesn't have a referral motivation in it, or doesn't have a way to refer. So when working together as a product team, you have to understand those things. So I kind of want to take a little bit of time to talk about some of my stories. And I didn't give you a background at the beginning, even though it says right here, my background. I just skipped right over that. So jumping back, my background is not in technology. I started and was actually trained as a lawyer. I did that for 2 years and then regained my senses and said, what else can I do with these skills? So I started working at a .NET consulting agency, yes, .NET, back in 2007, 8. And I was hired to do contract work and statements of work and document all the requirements. And this is back in the days of everyone was doing waterfall and you had to document everything when you started. So I got hired to go to enterprise level companies and interview people all day long. At the time, I didn't know that's what a product manager was or what a product manager did. I didn't know that writing feature sets was this special title, and that's why I say it's kind of, a frame of thought. And then from there, I went to a marketing agency, and we specialized in sweepstakes, contests, promotions, loyalty. So I've spent about 3 years in the marketing side and about 3 or 4 years on the tech side. Besides working here, I've also worked at a mobile app company out of New York. So I've spent my time kind of straddling the line between the two in a way that has made my opinion sometimes very well received and maybe sometimes not when being on the product side. I've definitely brought up marketing a lot more than I think some of my counterparts at previous jobs or that some of my clients really wanted to hear. So oftentimes I sit down and when my client comes to me and says, I want to do a project, this is my idea. I want to build a new Instagram with ephemeral content. Okay, I'm like, well, that's called Snapchat, but let's hear what you've got. And I say, well, what's your business strategy? So if you look at that kind of Venn diagram, that's the business side. So as a product manager, I'm thinking, what's your business strategy? And he says, I've got great social networking contacts. I've got a ton of people on Instagram. I've got a ton of people on Twitter. And I'm sitting here and the marketing side of me is saying, well, that's a marketing tactic. That's not your business strategy, but tell me more. And so we built this relationship, and yes, his business strategy was really tied to his marketing strategy. And I think that was important that I didn't kind of push it off. The product became a zombie, but it was a success story in how good the communication was. He introduced me to his marketing team. I worked with them. I understood what his marketers wanted to do and why in pushing the app, how they wanted to do that. And it sounds really obvious, but you can't do acquisition if you're going to have a social marketing sort of viral strategy if the product managers aren't aware of it at all. For example, we had somebody who lined up a celebrity. We're not talking like Kim Kardashian here, but this person was not breaking the internet anytime soon. They were going to Coachella, which is kind of the West Coast version of breaking the internet and all fashion rules, if you've seen people there. But so they were posting at Coachella. And as a marketing manager, like, they had all of these goals in their content strategy, but amazingly, and this was a win, they let me in on those. And so I could alert my team. I alerted my tech team and developers, we're probably gonna see a lift from this. We talked to the people who, it was an e-commerce solution, who actually manned our phones and handled that. And that's not necessarily the role of a product manager, but understanding the business impact that that could have on acquisition and referrals. It was really important to understand that if you're gonna push this big marketing tactic, it's gonna get you this huge lift and then it doesn't work, you're dead in the water. No one's gonna use it, no one's gonna refer it. And so that seems something really obvious, but I considered myself really lucky that the marketing team was open enough to work with me and share those kinds of things with me. So on the flip side of that is a story that could have been really disastrous, but turned out great. I was working on a beauty e-commerce app, I'll call it, and from the beginning we worked really great with the marketing department. The marketing department had hired a PR department that we didn't know about. And the PR department had great connections and was gonna get us featured in quite a few beauty, Us Weekly type of magazines. And they had this great idea to offer a discount code. You're looking here, like referrals, that's so great. People can refer other people. They wanted to give out free codes to beauty managers and to people who own the magazines. And they thought this was the best idea ever. And that is obviously a great idea. I mean, it's an excellent referral tactic. What do you need to do a referral code? Is a place on the app that accepts referral codes. So we had already done the app, had it submitted to the store and accepted, and we didn't have a referral code part in it. It was an MVP, a minimum viable product or a very lean product. And I think that's where you get into an interesting place, is everyone wants to build something lean. And as a product manager, you're trying to build the best product, but also not put in features that aren't needed. And I think this is an important thing to remember, that products are going to need features for marketing at some point. And if you don't know what the marketing plan is, you might miss a key feature that you have to have. And this is especially important in mobile apps because this isn't a website. If you're a website and you're like, oh, we're missing that field in our checkout process, you can go in and drop it in pretty quickly. I shouldn't speak for the developers on that one, sorry if I just said you guys can do something quickly. But that's something that doesn't scare me. But an app that's already approved and you realize you're missing a key piece of functionality that had a key deadline. I mean, this coupon code had already gone to the magazines. It was already ready for print. We had 2 weeks to fix it. So we used one of our expedited requests to get it approved and got it in time. So it ended up not being a big deal. But it was one of those things that when we had our retrospective at the end and sat down and talked about, wow, what did we screw up on that project? It was actually making it too lean. It was slowing down and not talking to our marketing team and saying, how do you guys see this working? And what ideas do you have? Because something I didn't know is that in the beauty world, all of these kind of referrals that you don't pay, but you really ask to promote your product, no one expects to pay for it. And that's something I just didn't know. So from a product side, I didn't know that those people expected to get the product for free. And that I was told by the marketing and PR team, if we would have not put that in there, no one would have used it and they would have used one of our competitors. And there was a competitor coming out. So that's an excellent example of understanding why a feature is necessary. And then I was the one that had to go to my developers, and say, I'm really sorry. You're gonna have to work a couple of late nights and we have to get this in. And that's not something anybody wants to do, but to be able to frame it to them and say, this isn't just I screwed up, and I've fallen on the sword a few times and I'm happy to do that, but to say I screwed up in not talking to the marketing team instead of we screwed up and not thinking about something, or I screwed up and just forgot to write that user story. You you have kind of a framework to work around it and say why it's so important. So that's a good example of that. And the last one I have is kind of a, everyone said a few years ago, there's an app for that. And we all know that there's a million apps out there that do the same thing. I was talking to someone earlier today who had a great idea for something that's really Denver specific. You can go talk to him later about it. I don't want to give you away, but the problem is if people don't know about it and you don't have a marketing plan, it's very obvious. How are you going to get it out there? Or what if you're the best and no one knows? So I worked with a client that had a lot of money to do something, and we made a beautiful app. The onboarding was gorgeous. The back end for the admins was gorgeous. The restaurants that used it loved it. The problem was she didn't think about the marketing budget or the marketing tactics. And I was a little newer in my career at the time and didn't really know the right questions to ask. So instead of asking the wrong questions, I just didn't ask any questions. So that's my advice, is don't be scared to ask questions. If you're a product manager or you're a developer, you have to think, who is using this and why? And on a great team, everyone should be able to give those ideas. And we missed a couple of things with that we could have, added in. But more than that, we just focused on our one silo. And as a product manager, more than anyone else, you can't be siloed. You have to think about all the areas. So if I could go back and do that one again, it would have been talking about phased releases in terms of marketing. I focused so much on phased releases in terms of what cities we were going to target from a tech point of view and how we were going to get data in different cities and all those things. And I never slowed down to explain to her or talk through her plans of how those phased releases would tie with her marketing plan. And that's where, from a product management point of view, maybe that's not a feature. That wasn't anything I did to miss putting something specific for New York in this app or specific for London in the app. But I didn't think about how my business plan and our release plan there interacted with her market plan and her business plan for the app. So those are just a couple of examples. Does anybody have any questions about what I've talked about with my examples? Yes?
I'm kind of wondering what the product manager's role is when it comes to building things into the product for acquisition. I know it's talking to marketing and the developers and getting it in there, but like in your experience, have you had an app that you didn't really fully understand, but or you didn't understand kind of the industry, because we kind of have that a lot. We have a lot of clients that we have to really learn a lot about the industry before we can do that. How do you kind of approach that with your marketing team and developers?
Skookum has a great mantra that we share with a lot of our clients, which is we're here to build something great, but we're not here to be experts in your industry. I've sat down with so many of my clients and said that time and again, because no one wants to hear me come in as your product manager for hire and tell you that I know more about your business than you've been doing for years than you do. So that's really where the communication comes in. You have to sit down and take the time to ask those questions, like I said, about what their business is, what their strategy is, what their story is, because all of that educates and informs what that acquisition is going to be. And if you don't know those areas, you can't be expected to, nor should you try to learn them overnight before a quick meeting. I think all of our clients appreciate that we say, we want to learn from you and we're going to be partners with you and take the time, versus come in and say, like, we know how to do this and this is how it's going to be done. I think the flip side of that with acquisition is it's not just about the app. And as a product manager, it's not just about me building a great app. It's thinking about what other things from a tech point of view are going to support that app. Is it an onboarding page? Like, if a mobile app is for Chase Bank, or it's what I call a supportive app, it's for a product that already exists, it already has a network of people who are going to be looking for it and understanding it. If it's for something that's specifically going to go viral, that's a whole strategy. But if you are creating a product from the ground up and you want to get it out there, you have to do more than just get it in the store, right? You have to create a website landing page. You have to have your Twitter account and all those things. And maybe that's not my job as your product manager to do, but I should probably say, who's building your website? Can we help them? Or are you building a website, and how? And those kinds of things I think are important in the acquisition stage to understand is like, what kind of supportive things was the client imagining? Because maybe they have a bunch of ideas that you don't know about because you don't know the vertical.
Right. I'm always worried about them, expecting me to, kind of know more than I do. And so, it is important to set those expectations, but sometimes even when you do that, they're like, well, this, the copy's not right. That's not actually what we do, or, that kind of stuff. So I think that's a big communication thing too, right?
And I know that sounds obvious, communicate early and communicate often. But I think a lot of people have to struggle with that. Not the actual communication skills maybe, but just opening the doors to get to talk to the right people. And I think that was a good example when I said the marketing and PR example is I really thought I was talking to the right people, and I didn't know there's this whole silo over there of people with other ideas.
When it comes to the idea like stopping the feature creep and saying this is our MVP and the reason is people like the life cycle of your app, and then you connect the marketing departments with that to say, do you usually set up potentially like 2 or 3 iterations deep of this is going to be the next spot and this is how marketing is going to swoop in when that comes in to make sure we take advantage of that big surge of attention?
So I really do like to keep marketing in some way informed throughout all of the phases. But what I like to do is say, the cheesy lines, put a pin in it, whatnot. Sometimes I say I'll arm wrestle you for that feature, which I'm not beating anyone in an actual arm wrestling contest, so I probably should stop saying that one. But what I usually do is very clearly mark in my stories what I think are phase 2, phase 3, but I bring them up early. I bring them up early with stakeholders, whether it's my client. I bring them up early with the engineering team, because I don't want to throw something at the engineering team in sprint 6 in version 2 if I've thought it's crucial to the marketing or the marketing team thought it's crucial. That is a luxury that we have here at Skookum because we have the time to really sit down in a team and talk about it.
Right.
If you don't have the time, and if you're really strapped for that MVP, maybe that's not necessary, but I think in the world of mobile apps, the idea of an MVP and a lean product gets you into trouble when it comes to marketing. So I do think that communication early on is really important.
I'm sure that it helps too, like when the designers and stuff like that, especially because screen real estate is so vital, that knowing what is going to come in the future so you can leave room for those in the future, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, I kind of like to start with my pie in the sky and let everyone know what my pie in the sky is, which I'm sure sometimes frustrates some of my team members because that means more meetings. But in the end, that leaves us with like a really good planned out product in terms of that marketing strategy.
So I've worked for and with companies in the past where you realize that the marketing department isn't necessarily in sync with the business. And as a product manager, like how challenging that can be because you're taking direction from one side, you're taking direction from the other side, or information from both sides. Have you ever been in that situation where they're not in sync, and do you have any tips on how to remedy that?
I have been in that situation. I think it comes from maybe not necessarily being in sync, but maybe marketing has a budget. And they've been told, here's your budget. But they weren't given free reign to spend whatever they want on those budget in whatever channels. They were literally told, you have to spend this much on Facebook install ads and this much on this, without understanding that from the business point of view, maybe Facebook isn't their best channel. And they understand from a marketing point of view it was, but maybe from a business it wasn't. And so at that point, I sat down with the key stakeholder and said, this is what I'm hearing. Is this your understanding? And it's a really kind of, depends on your relationship too with the key stakeholders, but it's really about repeating back what you're hearing from the different people and then saying, I think this could impact my app in this way. And then that's how I did it and kind of got people to understand, unless we're going to be, for in this example, having Facebook shares and Facebook login in the app, maybe pushing the Facebook ads wasn't the most important thing. So that's how I did that.
Cool.
Can I ask one more?
I think you reached your limit now.
What? It is fascinating. What happens when your marketer comes to you and says, look, your planned rollout, like you were saying, your planned rollout, the features, the iteration that you're planning, 9 months from now, we're seeing that we really want to put that in now, and before the product kind of reaches that critical mass and falls off the face of the earth without this specific feature. As a product manager, how do you kind of like scramble your team and try to respond to that?
It's a huge challenge, obviously, because I would like to say it never happens. I would like to say that we talk early, like to your question, I kind of skated around it. Like, you know, you can like to say that you do all those things in advance, but obviously, if you're doing some growth hacking or, you know, we're doing serious A/B testing, I like to build that into the plan. I like to say that I have this much time available in sprint 3 to add in some features that we don't even know what they are yet. So that's how I would like to do it in a perfect world.
Yeah.
In a not so perfect world, in a place where you're fitting in a feature, like I said, with the discount code, you buy a lot of pizza and beer and just ask really nicely, and hopefully you've gained some you know, karma with your team and they help you out. If it's absolutely not possible, then you just talk about how fast you can get that next iteration out and not to push the marketing with the current version that you're on. I think that's really important is think about, I know the marketing team wants to push an idea or push a product at this time, but if it's not there, you have to have that clear conversation with the marketing team and say, give me 3 weeks, and then we'll see where we are at that point.
We had something similar. It was, well, it's a small startup I work at, so I built the mobile end of it, but nobody really stepped up to be the product manager, so I just took the initiative and did that. And what we found was none of us really knew the idea, so we did research in multiple categories and talked to people, and what we found is that everybody found their priorities were different, and our MVP just bloated. And then the marketing got in on it, and they're like, and you start to have tug of wars of what's supposed to go in on version 1, and then marketing slips in and says, but we need this because this is critical, and it's like, but that's not really a customer thing. So we have this weird tug of war between what is MVP, what does marketing need, and when. And it's an interesting, because I'm stuck in the middle, and they both have compelling arguments. So.
Well, and that's when you need a mediator, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I said product management might be a title, it might be a frame of thought, but if you don't have someone with that title, you have to decide early on, like, who does the buck stop with? And who's the one who's mediating it and making those decisions? And sometimes if it's not a person with the best product, you know, idea in mind, you're gonna run into problems, but someone needs to be the boss in that case.
A lot of times just pull the trigger on one and hope that everybody's cool with it. Or
Right.
you won that one, let them win the next one. Kind of.
Arm wrestling. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you guys.
Great job, Danielle. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Ashley Clabb. I'm the People Engagement Manager here at Skookum. We're so grateful that you came and you spent your Friday lunch with us. We do this the first Friday of every month. Unfortunately, we won't be doing it next month because